Hi, my name is Imo, and welcome to my channel, In My Opinion, where we discuss creative outlooks to endlessly inspire hope, connection, and self-love. So today I wanted to get on here and discuss this whole topic of sameness. Why do we want people to be almost identical to us or pretty much the same as us, like having the same perspectives, the same views, the same interests, the same hobbies? Why do we look for sameness? So this is something that I think applies to all relationships, but I'm gonna talk about it specifically when it comes to dating relationships. So I will provide two examples. So example one, I was on a dating app a few months ago and I had matched with this guy and we were talking about our interests, and he had an interest for travel. And so of course his question to me was, where would you want to travel? And I could see where this was going, and I kind of had an idea. And I feel that his response was very telling to me. So he asked me, where would you want to travel? And then I replied back to him. So I live in a very beautiful province. I think my favorite things are trees, mountains, and water. And I live in a province that has a lot of that. And there are many areas in my province that I have not explored yet because it's a big province. And when you're working and doing life, of course, you don't have time to explore everything in your own backyard. So I responded that way, that I wanted to explore the province that I live in. And it was very interesting what his response was. So his response back to me was, I wouldn't want that. Like, that's kind of not what I'm looking for. Like, I want to travel to Japan and Vietnam and like all of these countries. And I was thinking, like, while I myself would want to travel to those particular areas because of it's amazing to explore this world, I found it very interesting that his response back to me wasn't one where he engaged with what I said and said, okay, so why do you want to explore your province, or what do you find interesting about it? He wasn't engaging with my answer. He was more so looking for similarity or affinity, and that's why he responded the way he did. So I thought that was very telling. My second example comes from another guy that I was talking to. We were talking about perspectives and viewpoints and how we see the world, and he was talking a lot about meaninglessness and touching on nihilism, and he was telling me that he finds life for the most part meaningless. And he was a very intelligent person, very well studied. So I was very interested in his approach, and I wanted to challenge that because I'm the kind of person that I think what I'm looking for in a partner and what I enjoy in even just a friendship is the ability to challenge one another and discuss different perspectives and philosophies and viewpoints. So I challenged him on the meaninglessness discussion, and there were some things that he alluded to in his life, like he mentioned that he had a daughter and different things like that. So I challenged him. I said, oh, but don't you find meaning in like raising your child and different things like that? So I really challenged him, and I could tell that he didn't really like me challenging him, and it was almost like the way I interpreted things, it was like he wanted me to like agree with him about the meaninglessness of life, like me having my own perspective where I find life very meaningful, and I feel that as human beings we build meaning, and that's the beauty of being human. And I think a very remarkable and special quality about being human is how we create meaning. So I was trying to share that with him, and he felt it felt like he was a bit put off by the discussion, because very shortly after that, it seemed like he didn't really want to talk to me anymore. Now, I want to make it clear, I wasn't challenging him on his viewpoint because I wanted him to agree with me. Me challenging him on his viewpoint was a form of me engaging with him. I tend to be a kind of philosopher type who loves to discuss different ideas, and I found his viewpoint very fascinating because I feel like this world is full of a lot of meaning. And for me, I wanted to pick his brain a little bit because it was fascinating to me that he couldn't see meaning, or I wanted to understand what his idea of meaning meant. And that is why I was engaging with him in that way. And it was actually very exciting for someone like me to have a conversation like that. It was really stimulating, and it was kind of getting the juices in my mind going. So I was really excited that we could have this kind of discussion. And because he seemed like quite an intelligent person, it seemed like a wonderful opportunity. I was perfectly happy to continue to date him and get to know him with that particular difference. And I was actually quite curious to see how it would all unfold. So it made me think, like those two examples made me think that when we go on dating apps, or even when we're looking for friends, why is it that we are more comfortable with people who have the same outlook on life as us, or the same views, the same hobbies, the same interests? And is there something to gain in creating friendships and connections with people who are different from us, who we could potentially learn a lot from? Could we use each other as a chance to learn more about the world that we live in, and different perspectives, and even learning about different hobbies or interests from others because they don't have the same ones as us? And can we even build relationships, like romantic relationships, with people who are different from us? Like, yes, I do think it's important to have some common affinities so that you can connect, but what would it be like to be fully open to and embrace difference and use that to enhance one's life? So something that really stands out to me, and a question that I have for us as people, is there a part of us that feels threatened by differences, whether those are differences in a partner or differences in a friend, whether that's differences in perspective or interests or life experiences or background? Is there a part of us that feels threatened by differences that we see in other people? And I would want to ask, why is it that we feel threatened by each other's differences? Like, why is there this almost this type of searching for sameness? And while, yes, I think it's very human and very innate to want to look for what is the same in others, I think if you study sociology, I'm sure there is some type of research or studies on that. But for me, I want to question this idea of looking for sameness. And can we flip the switch and switch the narrative? What if we got out of our comfort zones and we specifically looked for differences as a chance to grow and build something new within ourselves and for each other? One thing I think of about, in terms of why we may be looking for sameness, is that when we find differences, especially in an intimate relationship, we are challenged to grow in some way. And that may involve making compromises, coming out of our comfort zones, wrestling with new ideas, trying something new. And whenever we find ourselves in those types of positions, it's quite painful. I think that most growth comes with pain, and perhaps as human beings, it's easier to stay within our comfort zones. It's harder to embrace something different or new because you will have to, like, especially if you have a partner who has maybe different views or different interests or that type of thing, then you will be challenged in some way to empathize or get on the same page with them, or to be able to sit with them in those differences and be okay with that. When it comes to sameness, we can understand that other person very quickly without difficulty. There is an immediacy when it comes to understanding the other person. And we all want to flock to the things or the people that feel like us or look like us or that we can readily understand. I've mentioned this in a prior video about interfaith relationships. In a previous relationship, I was challenged to grow in a very major way because we came from two different faith backgrounds and we thought very differently about life at that time. And so we had to sit with each other's differences for the duration of that relationship. And it was very difficult. And I think we had a lot of moments, especially me, where I was trying to have my partner come over to my side and be like me. And I think at the time that was very important to me. And another thing is, in that relationship, we didn't have the skill set in terms of how to deal with each other's differences. So I want to share some ways that help us deal with differences, whether those are differences in a relationship, a romantic relationship, or differences in friendships. One of the major mentalities I could see that is very helpful in dealing with differences is to, number one, slow down and not being quick to make judgments or assumptions about that person, and staying curious and questioning. I think that is a very, very major skill when it comes to dealing with differences. So asking questions of your friend, of your partner, when they tell you about something that is new to you or different to you, rather than using it as a way to size them up or make them come to your side or try to convince them that what you believe is better or that they should be doing the hobby that you're doing in the way that you're doing it, whatever it is, rather than doing that, staying curious and asking questions, and if you even dare, engaging with them about that difference and even being willing to participate in some way in that difference with them as it pertains to your values, of course. I think a beautiful thing about humanity, about human nature, is that we are always evolving and we are living canvases that are always developing and changing and being refined. And I think as we come together and as we converge with different types of people and different types of personalities, people of different backgrounds who have different experiences, different hobbies, different interests, as we merge together, we become something new. And that's such a beautiful thing. And sometimes it's through another person, whether it be a friend, a romantic partner, a family member, whatever relationship you have, sometimes it's through another person that you actually evolve. You take on new hobbies, you take on new interests, you have different ways of seeing the world. I remember, this is not as big as like a viewpoint shift, but I remember like maybe 10 years ago, I had a partner who was really into outdoor sports and like snowboarding and doing a lot of outdoor activities. And at that time, although I was someone who liked to stay active, I wasn't really someone who was into like winter sports or things like that. And just staying curious and wanting to engage in this type of activity with my partner, it opened up that world for me at the time. And I was, going snowboarding, and even went without my partner sometimes, and that type of thing. So you never know how being open and staying open to different experiences, perspectives, how it opens you up to new things in this world. And I think oftentimes when it comes to opening up, we feel a lot of fear. Fear is always like the first emotion that we feel. But I think as we move out and take baby steps into the unknown, we feel more and more safe. I'd say that another really good mentality to have is not to take anything personally when you're getting to know someone new and you detect differences. This is a person who is on their own journey of life. This is a person with their own sense of being, their own sense of self. And I think it's really good not to take things personally, and to almost engage with ideas objectively too, as you are getting to know those ideas. Like, for example, if you are getting to know a new partner and they're telling you about something that's really important to them, and you are trying to, you have this mentality now of sizing them up and trying to see how that fits into your life. I think that I do think that's an important approach. But I think when you're first getting to know someone, I'm not sure if that is initially the best approach. I think it's good to have more of an objective lens and ask questions and see what they value and what's important to them, and not in a way where you're using it to determine whether it fits in with you, but in a way where you are just genuinely curious about this person and their life. And I feel like it, in a sense, it's like a pure way to get to know someone. And I think it's so important just to be kind and empathetic with whoever you meet, and when you're engaging with their differences. Given, yes, it can be really hard because sometimes other people's differences causes a lot of fear inside of us. If it's something that is very unknown to us or scary, and just completely out of our own framework or context or reference, it can be very scary. But I think it always goes a very long way to stay kind and empathetic to the other person in the midst of their differences or whatever differences you come across. So I would love to hear from you and this discussion about sameness and differences when it comes to especially dating and I guess friendships as well. Do you tend to flock towards people who are the same as you, or do you challenge yourself to meet new people and friends who are quite different from you? And do you allow yourself to be comfortable or to come out of comfort zones and sit with differences? I would love to know your thoughts, and if you have any tips of how to sit with other people's differences, especially the differences of people that you are emotionally intimate with, whether that's a family member, a friend, or a romantic partner. Please comment below and like and subscribe for more content.